All right, welcome back to it. Big happenings in Michigan. The Attorney General of the state of Michigan, Dana Nessel, has been avoiding a minefield for a while now, but it got a lot closer yesterday. One of her friends charged with embezzlement, somebody she tried to protect, it appears. Joining me is State Representative Jay DeBoyer. He's the chair of the House Oversight Committee in the state of Michigan, represents District 63. Jay, welcome back to the program.
Morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. You've been running these investigations. You said to me on this program that Dana Nessel was protecting her friends and her wife in another case from being investigated and possible prosecution. Well, yesterday, that friend that she's been trying to protect from claims of embezzlement was charged with felonies in Kent County, Michigan. Tell the folks the story.
Yeah, so I'll try to be as informative and as precise, but as brief as I can. Traci Kornak is an attorney. Some people refer to her as a slip and fall attorney, she additionally is a probate attorney. In this case, she was designated as a conservator for Miss Rose Bird. Miss Rose Bird was in an automobile accident and was not incapacitated, but she did have some forgetfulness issues because she had had a head injury. And so what the conservator's role is to make sure that Miss Bird's bills are paid, right? That the money's where it needs to be, that her bills are paid. Miss Bird lived in an independent living facility that was paid for by State Farm because of the auto accident. Additionally, Miss Bird did receive a settlement in a lawsuit in the accident. She was not at fault in the accident. She was just an unfortunate victim. We can get into that settlement in a second, if you don't mind, Steve, but I'll give you the nuts and bolts here. So what happens is that Traci Kornak, after a period of, brazenness, I would have to speculate, drafts a fraudulent invoice, literally creates an invoice with a header on it using a medical services provider header, a company that she has nothing to do with, by the way. She then takes the Heather Hills EIN number. Heather Hills is the facility that Miss Bird resided in. She uses their EIN number, puts this EIN number on this fraudulent invoice, puts her own home address on the invoice, sends it to State Farm, claiming that there's money due for services rendered for caregiving of Miss Bird that was executed by Traci Kornak's daughter. This is the start of it, Steve. And State Farm recognizes when they see the invoice that the address is not Heather Hills' address. So what they do is they make contact with Heather Hills, and they end up sending a check to Heather Hills for this. Heather Hills receives it, and then they check their data, and they say, why are we getting this check? There's no reason for us to get this check. That is what starts the snowball on this entire issue. They contact Traci Kornak because Traci Kornak is Miss Bird's conservator. She's the one. Remember, at this moment, they're under the assumption that Traci Kornak is the conservator. She is just doing what she's supposed to do. There's no correlation. And Traci Kornak then starts to falter in her story. She starts to say that, well, this is invoicing for my daughter, the services that she provided for Miss Bird, which is the beginning of the end for Traci Kornak. All lies, all fraudulent. Her daughter, although it does appear that her daughter had been to the facility at some times, there was an investigation done, and it turns out that these dates and times that she was claiming that her daughter was at this facility providing services for Miss Bird for 12 hours a day,
didn't match up. None of this matched up. And so the Kent County prosecutors filed at least 2 felonies that I'm aware of. Maybe it's 3, whatever it is. But the reason she was insulated was because she was insulated by the Attorney General of the state of Michigan, my understanding, Dana Nessel. Right. Is that true?
That is true. So what happened with all these things is that eventually when Heather Hills figured out that there was more going on here, a whistleblower came forward. Now, credit to Charlie LaDuff here. Whistleblower comes forward. Charlie LaDuff writes an article. This article comes out, right? At this time, there's no investigation. At this time, there's no charges. At this time, there's no complainant. This article comes out. The Attorney General's office then opens a quasi-investigation because of the news article. Traci Kornak, on her own motivation, walks into the Attorney General's office to quote unquote give her side of the story. Because we know that that's common, that someone that's charged with a crime just shows up at the Attorney General's, or, at least portrayed to commit a crime, just shows up at the Attorney General's office. The problem is this, Steve. Traci Kornak and Dana Nessel have a direct personal relationship. Traci Kornak was the treasurer for the Michigan Democratic Party, and Traci Kornak worked on the transition team for Dana Nessel, including when this investigation, not really an investigation, they call it an investigation, occurred. The Attorney General's office put up a firewall and, in their own words, said, because of the close personal relationship between Dana Nessel and Ms. Kornak. So they put this firewall up, which Dana Nessel then proceeded to violate multiple times while this firewall was in place, up to and including sending a directive to her staff to share the investigative file with Traci Kornak because, quote, she's up for a judicial appointment in Kent County. All while the firewall was in place, all while the case was open, all while the investigation, in quotation marks, because they did absolutely no investigation. This email occurs, and then within roughly a couple of weeks, case closed, Steve.
It was swept under the rug until you came along and said, let me lift this rug and take a look. Now the Kent County prosecutor has filed felony charges against her. I need you to hold on, Jay. We're going to go through a commercial here. I've got more questions, if that's okay with you.
I got more info.
I'm sure you do, so sit tight right there. Dana Nessel directly involved with what sounds like insulating, protecting, and a cover-up of her friend, Traci Kornak, now facing felony embezzlement charges for everything that Jay just laid out there. We're going to dig deeper when we come back. This is a huge story, could blow the lid off the AG's office in the state of Michigan. What an election year surprise this is. I'll be right back. All right, back with Jay DeBoyer. And by the way, Jay's going to stick around with us at the top of the next hour because this is a big deal. Here's the question at hand, Jay. Did the Attorney General knowingly and willfully interfere in a case to protect a friend of hers? And I'm not going to say it was criminal, but was it out of bounds at least?
It was completely out of bounds, Steve. Absolutely, completely out of bounds.
Do you think that it's possibly criminal? Let me just ask.
Steve, I'm not a lawyer.
Thank God.
I would say that if it isn't criminal, it certainly violates the ethical standards of an attorney for certain at its highest levels. And then, throw in, responsibility as an elected official and your ethics obligation and your oath.
If an ordinary citizen had done what Traci Kornak did, would it have been put on the shelf?
Absolutely not.
If an ordinary citizen, if I had done that, or you had done that, or anybody else that wasn't well connected and didn't just walk into the Attorney General's office for a conversation, what would the outcome be?
They'd probably be in jail, right? They'd probably be in jail right now. Or
for an extended period of time.
Right. Yeah.
Not jail, prison.
Right, correct.
Just so we're clear on that, because there is a distinction, right? Not jail, prison.
Sure.
All right, so Jay, I want you to come back because this has implications. Dana Nessel has been at the highest level of the Michigan government for almost 8 years. She's been there through all of Governor Whitmer's tenure as governor of this state. What does the governor have to say about it? I'm going to ask you that when we come back. I'm going to ask you what Dana Nessel has to say about that. Are you going to subpoena Dana Nessel to come before your committee? I'm going to ask you that. So stick around. A lot more questions in this huge case. And this is only one. There's also another case involving Dana Nessel's wife, where it appears she was also insulated from investigation by the Attorney General's office. Big shakeup in Michigan. House Oversight Committee Chair Jay DeBoyer back with us in a few minutes.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
All right, let's jump right back into it now this hour. Jay DeBoyer, the House Chair of the House Oversight Committee in Michigan, still with me here today. Jay, thank you for staying because this is a huge story. Traci Kornak, friend of Dana Nessel, now facing felony charges in Kent County, Michigan for embezzlement. Again, we talked about this before the break. If you and I had done this, there would have been no walking into the AG's office like Traci Kornak did. The case wouldn't be shoved to the side and forgotten like happened with Traci Kornak after that convenient visit to the Attorney General's office. So back to the real serious questions here. Do you believe it's possible that Dana Nessel crossed a legal line, an ethical line for sure? I think that's pretty obvious. But a legal line. Is Dana Nessel in some sort of legal peril here? What are your thoughts?
And, you know, and like I said, I'm not an in-depth lawyer on these kinds of things. It's possible. I guess I would have to go to my lawyers on my team and say, can we look at the behavior and the actions now that we have corroborated evidence from, Adult Protective Services, now that we have corroborated evidence from Kent County Sheriff's Department, now that we have corroborated evidence coming at us. And by the way, Allegan County, there's a whole nother investigation going on by the probate judge there, and God bless that probate judge for doing what is being done there. So now that we do have this corroborating evidence, we probably should be going backwards now and looking at timelines and looking at the emails. But I'm going to share something with you, Steve, that has kind of got lost in the weeds in this conversation. We do have an open subpoena right now with Dana Nessel. Number one, we did subpoena her to come and testify. Due to a scheduling conflict, we were unable to actually have our committee hearing that day. So we then moved that committee hearing to another day. And when we said, would you please come and testify, because the subpoena, legally and technically wasn't valid for that day, she refused, and we received a message saying, but we would be happy to send some of our other AG staff to come and testify. Here's the problem, Steve, and we got to circle this back to make sure your listeners and the people of Michigan understand this. The role of this whole thing isn't Miss Rose Berg. The role of this is, as the oversight chair and as the oversight committee, is to look at Dana Nessel's behavior. And so her saying, no, I'm not going to come freely to testify. In fact, I have nothing, quote, I have nothing, she would have nothing to add because she was firewalled out of these cases. Yeah, she was firewalled out of the cases. The reason we want to talk to her is because she violated those firewalls. The reason we want to talk to her is, as the oversight committee, we have the right to investigate agencies. Additionally, we have multiple legislative purposes, which include modification of statute up to, by the way, and including impeaching Dana Nessel.
Let me ask you two questions here.
Sure.
Okay, so let me just ask that. Is impeachment on the table?
I would say that it's never not on the table, right? I would say that that's the best way to look at it. I think we really have to go through what I just laid out to make a determination if we can make the case that, and prove, you got to remember, it's prove the case, right? Can we prove the case that that it's warranted?
Here's my next question. In your opinion, did Dana Nessel, by her actions in this case, violate the trust of her office and the trust of the voters of the state of Michigan?
Yes.
Last question on this point. Based on this case only, and there's another one, on this case, based on what you know and what you've learned, and with Traci Kornak being charged with felonies in Kent County, and her relationship to Dana Nessel, and what appears to be impropriety from the Attorney General's office, should Dana Nessel resign?
Yes. Yes. You know what their defense right now is, Steve? Their defense is that Well, we didn't have that information while we were looking at this. Steve, whose job is it to find that information? It's their job to go find that information. It's complete ineptness. And this is why I said what I said in committee. And by the way, I've been corrected on this. They're either wholly incompetent or they're corrupt. I've had multiple people reach out to me and say, no, you got that wrong, Jay. They're both.
Pretty fair, pretty harsh. And there's another case. We only have a couple of minutes left here. Another case of an investigation by the Secretary of State's office into Dana Nessel's wife that also conveniently disappeared.
That's correct.
Tell us about that one. You've got about a minute and a half.
Yeah, so this is a case of campaign finance violation. A recommendation came out of the Secretary of State's office to the Attorney General's office that they believed, based on all the evidence that they were able to collect, that there was a campaign finance violation up to including a potential criminal level. Now remember this, the job of the Secretary of State when it comes to campaign finance is to be the investigating agency. It's not a police department. It is not Dana Nessel's office. It is the Secretary of State's statutory duty to do the investigations into campaign finance violations. And they determined that a violation had occurred. They forward that to the Attorney General's office, in which that time the Attorney General's role is one of two things. Don't bring charges or bring charges. That's it. That isn't what they did. They went out and created their own investigation and then came back and said to the Secretary of State's office, would you take back these charges because of A, B, C, and D? Now, on face value, your listeners may say, well, it seems reasonable if there's information. Here's the thing. That request was made by Dana Nessel in what appears to be a phone call directly to Jocelyn Benson. The request to take this back. How do I know that? Because of an email sent by the staff of Dana Nessel to the staff of Jocelyn Benson that refers to the conversation in which the Attorney General made that request to the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. The disappointing thing in this is, number one, that Dana Nessel did that, by the way, when she should have been completely firewalled away from the case. And number two, that Jocelyn Benson said that they would take it back.
Right. We need to keep talking about this, Jay. Keep doing the work you're doing. You know, you could have been retired by now. You didn't need to do any of this. I appreciate the work you're doing. And I'm going to ask one more time, because I want to be crystal clear about this. Should Dana Nessel, the Attorney General of the state of Michigan, resign immediately?
I would say this. We all know that people don't have great ethics, but I'm going to say this. If she had an ounce of integrity, she would resign.
Jay DeBoyer, we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
There you have it. There you have it. House Chair says Dana Nessel, if she had any integrity at all, should resign immediately. We'll be right back.